Okay, so our paper is devoted to a specific kind of discrimination which is related to obesity, to obese people, and here is our motivation. So hiring is a challenging task for any company, and we in our research group have just finished the process of hiring new research trainees, stagiaires, and I would say that hiring is really a complicated task. And while hiring some candidates, they do not receive an offer, not because of their qualification, but because of some characteristics which are not related to performance. And this is discrimination. It might be both positive and negative, but still your probability of getting the position should be related to your performance, not to your gender, nationality, and so on. And there are different kinds of discrimination. Really different. I already told about gender. There is also positive discrimination of beautiful women, for example, and so on. In our study, we are focusing on discrimination of obese candidates. And there are papers which show that there is such discrimination. So managers, while taking decision on whether to hire or not to hire a particular candidate, they take into account his, say, weight status. And in our study, we are trying to understand, okay, so there is a discrimination, but is there an evidence that obese people, they perform differently? So is there a difference in performance between obese people and normal weight people? And this is our main motivation. This question is difficult to study empirically. And as usual, the main difference for empirical studies is data availability. So there is no data. For average company, average firm do not disclose information about weight status of their employees and employers. And as usual, we as sports economists, we like to take sports as a setting to test some general interest issues. And when writing this sentence in the paper, in the introduction of paper, I was usually referring to Khan paper 2000, but now I am referring also to Alex's paper from, I think it is Journal of, yeah, so Journal of Economic Behavior and Organization, oh, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, so now I have two links. And here we want to use sports as a setting. And there are some papers in sports about this relation between performance and weight status. And so there are two sports which were studied. Tour de France, so biking, and there was an impact on performance, and the higher is BMI, body mass index of rider, the worse is his performance, and there is an explanation from medicine for this fact. And also there is a paper which utilized sumo data, and there were no positive relation. I was expecting the opposite, but in sumo, no significant relation between BMI and winning rate. There are, to our knowledge, there are no studies in the other sports or outside sports. And what we are doing in our paper, so we are analyzing the link between obesity and performance, and we use esports data. I would say about the reasons of choosing esports data a bit later. Just now, a couple of numbers about esports. So in particular, we use CSGO, Counter-Strike Global Offensive data. This is shooting game, team shooting game, and you see some numbers. They are spectacular. So the audience is huge. Prize pool is in different tournaments is also huge, and number of players is huge. And there are some papers. Some of them are our papers with Dennis. We already use this data a lot, and I like use data from esports because it is another setting and it is interesting setting with different for different problems like tournament design and team performance, team composition, and so on. And here are the advantages. So why we think that sports data, esports data, is good for our purpose? Well, first, we are able to track performance, like in all sports. So we have micro-level data on performance. Second, since we have photos of players, we are able to estimate their body mass index by photo. I would speak about this a bit later. So we do not observe their height and weight, but we use image processing and modern techniques, machine learning techniques, in order to have an estimate of BMI by photo. And here is a nice setting. So there is a repeated task, different levels of complexity. And I think that esports is closer to other industries comparing to the other, say, traditional sports. So gamers, they are sitting and using the computer, laptop, and I mean that the way they play is, to me, more similar to the way I work, for example, than if you want to compare me with a football player. So, and that's why I think that that adds to the external validity of our findings. Okay. And now I will have two slides on literature, and we have two different perspectives in our literature review. Health perspective, so why obesity might be beneficial, or why it might negatively affect individual performance or health, and also we have slides on economic perspective. So from the point of health perspective, obesity has negative influence on health. So this is fact, and it was studied a lot. There are multiple papers, so it is not good for your health to be obese. And also there are studies which show that it is overweight is also negatively associated with cognitive performance. So even if you are writing papers, if you are not playing football, but even if you are writing papers, it is not good to be obese, unfortunately. And there are gender differences, and it is interesting that there is gender differences in terms of mental health. So men, they are okay. I mean that from mental point of view, men are okay to be obese, so it doesn't hurt their mental health. But for women, there is a negative relation between these factors. Okay, so from point of economic perspective, why obesity is important? Well, because it increases costs, and and different kinds of costs. Of course, yeah, really different kind of costs. For example, not even direct costs of healthcare, insurance, and so on, but also your employee, cost of employee absence. So you want this employee to work and he is ill because of, for example, being obese. So that adds to costs of your company. So okay, there are costs, and also there are gender differences here. You see that there is no significant relation between BMI and job quality. Here this paper of Kim and Han is about job quality. It is not about performance. It is it is like how it is job satisfaction. It is how okay for me is to work, and not about how effective I am. Okay, and there are also papers which shows that obesity is related to different traits. I will skip this, and yeah, I have about 5 minutes, right? So what we are using? We are using CSGO data. This is a shooting game. We used HLTV as data source. HLTV is like transformer for football. So this is common data source. It is the best data source for this game. And we have quite a lot of, so here is the time span, and you see that we have quite a lot of data on performance with respect to different say units of performance, because one match consists of 3 maps, usually of couple of maps, and they consist of rounds. So we have quite a lot of observations, but our observations are mainly limited to the facial data. So we have about 2,000 player photo, and what is important, we do not have, for each player, we have only one photo. We do not have individual variation in BMI. And this is a huge limitation for us. First, what we have done, we have taken, well, we have done only one thing. We have taken player performance at the moment, so one season before, in our data, players' photo and players' BMI correspond to the season. So we have taken season which is relevant for the photo, but since we cannot control for individual unobservable effect, say for example player talent and so on, we avoid causal interpretation of our finding. So, and I will try to avoid causal language. So what I'm speaking is more about partial correlation, or like that we are not saying that BMI affects performance, but what we are saying that BMI, for example, will correlate or not with performance, all other things equal. Yeah, this is a slide about BMI estimation. In short, we rely on previous offers, and what they have done, they have used a huge data set from different databases, including fitness trackers, when you have weight, height, and photo, and they have trained their model, and they have and we use their model, but with an input of our gamers. So we have taken the model, and we use our photos as input to have an output estimation of players' BMI. Here is a slide which to show this is I forgot this Hollywood actor.
Christian Bale.
Yeah, thank you. So he is famous for his transformation for different roles. So this is the same person, and in each interview he is telling his so before, after shooting each film, he in his interview he gave his weight, so his height is constant, and we use this model to predict his BMI, and then we compare it to actual BMI, and the mean average error was not big. And what we have also done, we have tested if this model is working okay for football players, because for some football players we have reported weight and height. So this model is working good. Okay, here is summary statistics of our data, and what you see that is that variation in BMI is huge, so from 20 to 50. And when I seen 50, I thought that it is a mistake, but if you will look at photos, you see that this is not mistake. By the way, this is a player from my favorite CSGO team, and he is not. So here you see that variation in weight and in BMI is really huge. Rating is a proxy of player performance, so it consists of different indicators like kill to death ratio, headshot percentage, and so on. But rating is player performance and proxy of player performance, and the higher is the rating, the better is performance. So 3 is excellent. You see that 0 is about 1. Rounds is an indicator of match duration. So you see average is close to 30, and but maximum is close to 100. So we have huge variation in match duration. Age is from 14 to 34, and mean is 22. 22 is if a player is 23, he is already old. And we have different indicators of abuse. I'm sorry, I should. So abuse 1 is moderately abuse, and abuse 2 is severely abuse. And this is just binary variable of being abused without split into different subcategories. Here, just some more summary statistics by age and match length. Well, first, you see here that player performance is decreasing over the age. Maximum is somewhere here, close to 20. What is interesting here is that player performance also decreases with match duration, and that's interesting. And if you split this graph into different lines, which indicate different different obesity groups, you see that here we see an interesting result. So green line is for normal and slightly overweight people, and blue line is for moderately obese people, but red line is for severely obese. And we see that these two lines, green and blue, they are close to each other, and the pattern is the same, more or less, but red line is showing completely different pattern. So while for moderately obese and for normal and overweight, performance decrease over the time, for obese people, for severely obese, it is increasing, and it is not an outlier. So red line is about 10% of our sample. So this is not one or two players. And here you see the distribution of rounds. And you also see that this, here we also have quite a lot long matches. So with average somewhere here, we have some portion of sample also about, I think, 15% here. So this red line is not because of some outliers. So here are the only slide with regression equations. So we have 4 models, and they are different because of different interactions. So first, what you have seen is that coefficient for BMI is statistically significant and negative in all models. Second, and this the marginal effect, is about, I haven't put the comment. I think it is about 4%, 5 of the average. So it is quite low, but since the dependent variable is rating, it is about 5% of the average rating. And if you think about whether this effect, the effect of weight, is different in online or offline tournament, then there is no difference. But if you will think if it varies over the rounds, yes, it varies over the rounds. And you see that performance decrease over BMI and match duration, but the interaction is statistically significant and positive. And this result is robust. So if you will, even if you will split data in different subcategories, this is very robust result. And we then decided that it is different to interpret the interaction of two continuous variables. So we have run a regression for binary indicator of being obese, and you see here that binary identifier is also variable is also statistically significant and negative. The interaction is statistically significant.
Piotr, you stop demonstration.
Oh, I haven't done. I've done nothing. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Ah, sorry, don't know why. Well, here we see the same pattern, and we see the same pattern, and it is and if you analyze different categories, you see that you observe this pattern for severely obese gamers. So our regression results are in line with the plot which I discussed above, and the point when this effect mitigate the effect of just being severely obese is about 27 rounds, which is close to average gain. So what we have found that BMI is in general negative. So BMI have negative effect on performance, but For severely obese people who in matches which are longer than average, they outperform normal and slightly overweight people. So this is something which we were surprised to find. And the first result that BMI is negatively related to performance is in line with some medical and economic research. And yeah, this is all what we have for now. And if you want, I can share the data. All data and scripts are available for replicating. So thank you very much. And I will stop sharing. I will not stop sharing, but I am happy to answer the comments.
Okay, Peter, thank you so much. Now questions.
I raised my hand. I was.
Yes, please, Alex.
Was nice. And now we must speak English because of some Norwegian guys from Trondheim who joined us. It's not even a Norwegian. That's
Sorry.
Yeah, by the way, if there are mistakes, there are kernel mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's obvious. Come on.
Excellent, excellent. So I have a question. If you you stopped sharing, but so you used many times the same person, right? There are many persons that are multiple used in your data. Is that correct?
Not really. So we have taken only one season for each player. So
yeah, but
finally,
in this season he could have played many times.
Yes.
And this leads, and of course you don't use.
So we have average performance for this season, say. Not multiple times. We average his performance in all games during this season.
Oh, but then it's why you could have used per player data. You get much more observations.
Yeah, but our variable of interest will be anyway constant, right? For each player.
Yes, but so what? First of all, you cluster for standard errors on the level of a player. Level of a team. I don't know. Why is it bad?
No, it is not.
I think you just lose so much information by averaging. So for each player you have one observation, right?
Right.
But then if one player gives, I don't know the game, 10 points, and in another game 0 points, the average is 5.
Sorry, Alex. So I am wrong. No, this is an updated version. So here we have exactly, I think, what you are telling. So here we have quite a lot of observation, but this indicator is constant over the player.
Yeah, that's fine. And here comes because I was sure that this is what you're doing. And the question was, what's happening with your standard errors? Did you cluster it? Because if you didn't, this is a bit problematic. And I don't see it.
I don't think that we clustered them in this regression. I think so.
You should. The simple answer that you should. Very simple. Because you can have bias in your standard errors, and then you may have insignificant result instead of significant. That's my comment.
Okay. Спасибо. Gracias.
Okay. Do we have other questions? No other questions. Then thank you, Peter, once again.
Thank you.
So let's move on to the next presentation. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Today I am glad to present you our model on sport doping and politics. And in this game theoretical model, we investigate the factor of corruption in the doping dilemma. So our research questions was as follows. First of all, we were wondered under what conditions it might be tempting for a corruptioneer, politician, or we will call him incumbent, to intervene into the competition through the channel of intervention in the National Anti-Doping Agency affairs. Secondly, our question was, how does this intervention actually affect the total amount of doping used in sports? Probably it will increase it, or due to some mechanism increase. We will shortly know that. And thirdly, our interest was in the role of the testing technologies in the intervention. By that, I mean that what happens to the fact of the intervention if we improve the testing technologies? Will the interventions happen more often or not? So before I start discussing our model, let me tell you a little bit about the related to this topic literature. First of all, there is a classic paper of Eber and Thepot, and in that paper they show that an improvement in the doping testing system and tightened anti-doping policies, an improvement of the probability of fighting doping decreases the total amount of doping. And their result is pretty straightforward. And it follows from the fact that if there are higher chances of getting caught because of using doping, then the incentives to use doping for athletes are distorted, and they will not do it because of the higher expected sanctions. But the following two papers have shown that this is not usually the case, and probably an improvement in that testing system will not decrease the total amount of doping in sports. First of all, Hogan in 2004 showed that tightening anti-doping policies, what is the same as the improvement of the anti-doping testing system, may not be enough to prevent athletes from using doping. Here is an example. If you increase the probability of detection of the doping by a little bit, because of the continuity, it will not affect the decision of athletes whether to dope or not. And if they were using doping, they will still continue using doping. But in fact, with this intervention, this tightening would worsen the situation because of the lower expected payoffs of athletes because of this tightening. And finally, Mohan and Hazari shown that if there are legal efforts and illegal drugs, such as doping in our context, and they are substitutes, then because of the substitution effect, the greater inspection activity and an improvement in the doping testing system may actually increase the level of doping activity. And the logic is as it is about the two goods in the standard economic theory and about the substitution effect between them. Our model investigates and reveals the new transmission channel from the testing technology to the usage of doping. This is different from what happened in the related literature. And I will talk about this shortly. Moreover, in our paper, we explore the ambiguous behavior of an ADA. National Anti-Doping Agency is usually meant to minimize the total amount of doping in sports, but in our model, it may be subject to corruption. And therefore, we allow for corruption in our doping dilemma. And this makes our analysis more reliable and realistic. let's talk about the assumptions of our model. First of all, there are two ex-ante symmetric athletes, which we call domestic and international, and they are competing in the home of the domestic athlete in a domestic tournament for the prize valued at 1. They decide simultaneously and independently whether to dope or not, so their choice is binary. Why should you dope? Or maybe you shouldn't. If you do not dope, as well as your partner, your opponent, then each of you get the probability of winning of 1/2. As well as in the case when you both are using doping. So if you both are using doping, then the probability for each of you to win is also 1/2. But if one player uses doping, whereas another does not, the probability of winning of the player who uses doping is 1. And obviously, the probability of winning of his opponent is 0 in this case. And if a player is tested positive for doping, they get the negative payoff of -v, where v is greater than 0. Let's move ahead and talk about the National Anti-Doping Agency. Domestic National Anti-Doping Agency has a testing technology that can reveal the fact that doping was indeed consumed by any single athlete with probability P. But if doping was not consumed, then drug test results will be certainly negative. And let's talk about the incumbent or a corruptioner or a politician. And he is considering a direct intervention in the NADA affairs. It means that he may or may not intervene into the NADA affairs. And in the case of intervention, the NADA will ignore the fact of doping consumption by the domestic athlete. NADA will close its eyes on it, on this fact. But if there is no intervention, then NADA behaves as if it is minimizing the total amount of doping in sports and tests both athletes properly. The intervention can be revealed with some exogenous probability Q. Eventually, utility function of the incumbent is simply the probability that the domestic athlete wins the competition, multiplied by the probability that he is not disqualified, multiplied by the probability that the intervention is not revealed. We consider these 3 events to be independent from each
Today, I am presenting our work on how air pollution affects individual worker productivity, and more specifically, we investigate how this effect based on sports data. Yes, first of all, we consider two pollutants, ozone and particulate matter 2.5, which are really fine particles with less than 2.5 micrometers in diameter. And the data that we analyzed comes from the Ironman and Ironman 17.3 triathlons over almost a 15-year period. First of all, a bit of context on air pollution. It is obviously a very hot topic in the 21st century. It has been a hot topic for more than I have been alive. Air quality has significant effects on people's health. Even if we don't notice it immediately, it has long-term effects as well as short-term ones. And now, what Ironman is? Ironman is a really famous sports event, considered to be one of the hardest in the world. It is a worldwide competition held in dozens and dozens of countries with thousands athletes participating in all of them. It consists of a swim, a bicycle ride, and a run, a marathon run, raced in that exact order. And there is also a half-distance version of it called Ironman 17.3, which consists of the same events, but the distance is halved. Yes. Now let us discuss the previous research in this area. Several authors have conducted similar research with sports data. For example, in 2020, Humphreys and Rosesky analyzed NFL games, how PM 2.5 affects football teams while they were playing outdoors at open stadiums, and they found that there is a negative effect specifically on defensive teams. Other authors have also considered how air pollution affects umpire calls, which is more of a cognitive task than the one that players perform. And they found that increased concentration of pollutants increases chances of incorrect calls by as much as 11%. German authors in 2017 also found a negative effect of air pollutants while analyzing soccer games. And Chinese authors used a whole index they constructed of 6 different pollutants, and used similar data to ours from marathons held by the Chinese Athletic Association, and they found that there is again a negative effect of air pollution. There also has been research into with the pure worker output data, but the authors have also mentioned that there are some problems with it, which we will discuss later. They found, again, negative effects. For example, daily output of farm workers decreases by as much as 4%, with the increase of ozone concentration by 10 points per billion, which is like I think was one standard deviation in the data that the authors used. And which is interesting, there is also evidence that air pollution has negative effect on worker output, even if they work in an enclosed environment. Yeah. And now an interesting question, why use sports data at all? And the answer to it is pretty straightforward. The individual productivity is really difficult to quantify, so we have to use some kind of proxy variables. And also, while output per worker is widely available in the data, it is really hard to distinguish the effect of individual worker productivity from other factors such as how many workers the company has, or how much it invests in their workers and their capital. Concerning our research, we primarily investigate implications for individual performance of workers involved in physical labor. This is basically dictated by the data that we used in our research. Another point is that the data that we have allows us to analyze short-term effects of short-term exposure to air quality. And we have 26 different locations in the United States. Another interesting trait of our data is that Ironman competition is open for amateur athletes as well as professional ones, and that the course is the same for both male and female athletes. The data, we collected the data from the Coach Cox website, which is a sports statistics aggregating site. We have almost 500,000 observations with 200,000 unique athletes. We collected the air quality data via the API provided by United States Environmental Protection Agency, and we took into account the stations, the meteorological stations within 50 kilometers of race locations. On this slide, you can see a regression equation that we estimated. We regressed the overall time that it took an athlete to finish the race, and see how ozone and PM affect the time. We also control for wind speed and heat index. Heat index is calculated based on temperature and humidity, and basically it measures how it feels outside. The temperature might be like 30 degrees, but depending on how humid it is, it might feel less than 30 degrees or more than that. And also we control for individual athlete effects, the location, and a year. And these are the results that we got. First of all, I want to point out that there is significant negative effect of both pollutants. So with the increase in concentration of air pollution, the overall time increases. Oh, and yeah, I forgot to include these four variables in the model, in the equation. We also included the interaction effects of pollutants and whether an athlete is male or female, and professional or non-professional. And concerning that, there is no significant results, except for that professional athletes seem to be less sensitive to increasing ozone concentration. In fact, their time seems to decrease with increase of concentration of ozone, which is an interesting result. Yeah, and this is a bit of a summary. If ozone concentration increases by 1 standard deviation, then the overall time is the athlete slows down by almost 7 minutes. which is 1% of the average time, and actually it may be called a lifetime on the high-level competitive sports. Again, there is no significant effects of pollutants on female athletes. And the professional athletes are less sensitive. For now, we think that this might be related to the training that the professional athletes undergo. They train more rigorously, and therefore they process air differently, and all the chemicals, all the gases that are in the air. Oh, and we also tested for joint significance of these 4 variables, interaction variables, and they are indeed significant. Okay, I think this is all from me. I'm ready to answer your questions now. Thank you.
Sergey, thank you so much. Now, place questions. Alex.
Dmitry, you have an excellent conference that you organized here. First of all,
well, we have different presenters. We have excellent authors, so they performed so well.
Me and you did not present well, but all the others are excellent. Anyway,
I have a question, Alex.
Yeah. You cannot control for competition fixed effects, obviously, right? Because the ozone or the pollution is constant over in the specific competition, right?
Yes. No, actually it is not, because the competition takes almost like 12 hours of the day, and it changes throughout the day.
But then
because of the wind and the way air moves.
But then how exactly do you measure this? Let's say you have somebody who ran for 2 hours. What is the measure of pollution that you will have for this guy? Is it the average for the run?
Yes, we basically average throughout the day and say that it was somewhere around this number.
So you cannot use fixed effects, I guess, because for the whole competition you have one measure of pollution. For one competition you have one measure. Is that correct or not?
Yes, that's correct. We have one measure.
But and then my question is, do you have several competitions like Boston Marathon you have in your data? For example, I don't really know whether you have it or not. How many years of I'm sorry I missed it, but I'm leading to some point.
Yes, we have a lot of different competitions. We analyze data from 2005 to 2019.
Excellent. Now, my problem is that maybe what happened that because you don't use specific competition fixed effects, but you could use overall competition fixed effects. Let's say every time it was in Boston, you should say, look, take Boston into account. Why am I saying this? Because maybe the lower time or the worst times are attributed to difficulty of track. For example, I'm just giving you alternative explanation of your result, because you did not control for this. Because I see many times, I also use the sports data, and I see that when I use competition fixed effects or when I don't use it, I can get different results. And if you have over many years, several times the same marathon, you can just have dummy for this marathon, but then every year you have different pollution values, right? So because what I can tell you is that, look, in Beijing, you have a tougher track, and that's why they run slower. And by the way, in Beijing, you have higher pollution. How do you disentangle between those? At this point, you don't.
Now we included location, so it's like a city.
Yeah, if you have
where the market took place.
But I asked whether you have it, you said no.
Okay, did I?
Yeah, you tell
Maybe
me.
I misunderstood your question. Yeah,
So
I'm sorry
you
about
have
that.
location.
We have controls for location.
Then okay. So all
my
this
God.
talk would have been prevented if you
No,
said.
we do not control for particular event, but we control
No.
for location. Yeah.
No, for particular event you cannot control because you have one
Sure.
measure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, excellent. Then, no. And just if already I asked Peter about standard errors, did you do something with your standard errors? Because it seems that athletes are the observations are not really independent within each competition.
No, we did not.
So maybe just clustering on the competition level.
Yeah, thank you for the suggestion.
Okay, Alex, thank you. Other questions to Sergey? If there are no other questions, then Sergey, thank you. Thank you. And
Thanks for having me.
good luck with your article.